While fishing along the Pascagoula River in Mississippi, Charlie Hickson and Calvin Parker claimed to have been abducted by alien creatures and taken into an alien spacecraft.
To be taken forcibly on a craft against your own will and to be subjected to strange experiments is one of the most terrifying things anybody would have to deal with.
As Parker lies scared and immobilized on a table, extraterrestrial androids begin their examination.
That's when the old big ugly creature, and I described him, it was a grayish looking, mechanical, robotic looking creature. I couldn't tell if it had on any spacesuit. He stepped back, and when he did, there was another feminine. I call this a female.
Parker describes the two gray droids as having crab-like claws, but the feminine humanoid has 5 finger-like talons.
Then she took a finger and run it down my throat and tried to come up through my nasal cavities. And that's when I started trying to come back to, I wanted to beat her to death because that was painful.
In fact, the pain is so unbearable that Parker thinks the alien is going to kill him.
And all of a sudden, I wore a white T-shirt at the time. It was already blood running down. And she backed up out of the way, and then the old big ugly one come in, the one that was mechanical looking, and I think he was a soldier. And they mumbled, and he grabbed me by the arm, and it must have injected something into it again, because I got relaxed all at one time again.
Then right away, the droid soldier lifts Parker in his claws and moves toward the door.
And that's when he picked us up and took us back out to the river, about exactly the same spot. That's the first time I had heard Charlie or even seen him. And I looked, and this thing, the lights went off, and it picked up off the ground a little bit, and it just shot straight up into the air, and it disappeared.
Later that night, Parker and Hickson do something extraordinary. For the first time in history, UFO abductees go immediately to the police after the encounter to file a report, thus creating an almost real-time record of their experience. Parker is taken into one room for questioning, Hickson is taken into another and interviewed by Sheriff Fred Diamond.
Why are you waiting until this time of night to call?
Mr. Fred, when I got out there, the first thing I told him, I said, son, ain't nobody gonna believe this.
I don't know if you tried.
And I apologize for that. That's my own fact.
I must be having right.
Well, I hadn't drank anything.
The Hickson-Parker case from 1973 is extremely interesting. What I think makes the case extremely credible is the evidence that we have of a secret recording that was done after the interview.
After being questioned separately, the men are brought into a third room and left alone together. Unknown to them, there is a hidden microphone.
While they were in the police station, the officer on duty, this is a very interesting thing he did. He said, I'm gonna leave the room for a minute. And he secretly left a tape recorder going to record their conversation because I think he was suspicious, like were they making something up or not?
This is the actual conversation between Calvin Parker and Charlie Hickson.
I'll be flashing out like I'm saying you're crazy. Cameron don't you like that damn thing. I'll pass that. I'll let her pass that in the line. I'm gonna see what's going on.
And I read the transcript of when they were having a conversation with each other, and Calvin was just, he was out of his mind with fear. And I think he had a pretty hard time for a while after his experience.
The secret audio tape, made without their knowledge, confirms for UFO researchers the credibility of Parker and Hickson's encounter.
Calvin Parker had only just arrived in Pascagoula, and this was his first day at work, and this got him fired. So who is going to put themselves in that situation? It seems impossible to believe.
And what you really get from the recording is that these guys were 100% telling the truth. Like, they were in a state of bewilderment and fear over what they had experienced. Skeptics can just say some people want attention, or it's sleep paralysis, or it's some kind of fantasy. But the problem is, like, that's almost never the reason. That's almost never what's going on.
According to recently uncovered evidence, Hickson and Parker report the incident to nearby Keesler Air Force Base the very next day. And in a stunning revelation, the official transcript notes that 2 additional people corroborated their story by reporting a UFO at approximately the same time. One of them was a Pascagoula law enforcement officer. Later that week, Pascagoula becomes the center of an international media frenzy. And in the weeks that follow, Calvin Parker is eventually hospitalized for an emotional breakdown. 38 years later, in 2011, Charles Hickson dies at age 80, having never changed any details of his story. And neither has Calvin Parker.
The reason I want everybody to know now is my family, my friends, and the general public that lives around me. They won't think I'm crazy for a neighbor.
For UFO researchers, the abduction of Calvin and Charles, who remained conscious during their ordeal and reported it to police, built powerfully on the evidence that abductions were real, as first established by the hypnosis revelations of Betty and Barney Hill. But as compelling as these cases are, could it be that we finally uncovered the smoking gun evidence that proves these stories once and for all? Coming up.
Dr. Roger Lear claims that alien abductees had been implanted with small devices.
The cocoons were in fact impossible to be inside the body.